Hi everyone. Let's start with our part 3 of this particular Aeon essays. Let's start where we are in yesterday. So I think we're gonna start from this series. The medical kit has been carefully placed upon a game board with glass counters, suggesting two playoffs. So let's see what this series contains. Start with the first passage of this particular series. There is substantial archaeological evidence for the practice of ritual murder in Iron Age and Roman period Britain and Gaul, though whether or not by Druids is debatable. Lindoman is the exception that proves the rule in as much as his body was so well preserved that it has been possible to track the details of his protracted torture and killing. But skeleton evidence also yields up its secret of how people died in cult-driven circumstances. There is a cluster of Iron Age war centuries in central France with graphic example of human sacrificial killing, the victims probably being prisoners of war. Two stand out: Gournay-sur-Arronde, and Remontseur-Ancre, Decapitated human heads were prominently displayed at the entrance of Gournay, and the bones of people and horses were constructed into large ossuary tables at Redmond. Other sanctuaries near the mouth of the river Rhone in southern France, such as Roquepetres and Glanum, were likewise decorated with the trophy heads of slain enemies. The archaeological evidence demonstrates that Irene's community repeatedly killed people as part of ritual activity, but that this practice was rare. 2 points arise from this. On the one hand, human sacrifice was probably undertaken only at times of great stress when communities were under that threat. On the other, the material evidence indicate that such rituals were undertaken into an organized manner, almost certainly conducted by priests. Whether they were Druid or not remain an open question, but it is sorely tempting to lay it at their door. So this whole passage is about the rituals of sacrificing humans, how some different communities sacrifice humans and their rituals. So the title of this passage is Rituals of Sacrificing Humans in Different Communities. Rituals of sacrificing human in different communities. In different community. So what we can take from this passage is, first, there is substantial. First, we can take from take this line. There is a cluster of Iron Age war century in the central France with graphic example of human sacrificial killing, the victim probably being a prisoner or of war. So, what we can take, there is a cluster of Iron Age war centuries in central France, sacrificing victims who are probably prisoner of war. And we can take this as well. Decapitated human heads were prominently displayed at the entrance of Gournay, and the bones of people and horses were constructed into large ossuary tables at remnants. So, who are the Gournays and remnants? It's given just above the this particular sentence. The Gournays, Sir Andre Ois, and the remnants, Sir Ancre Summon. So, it says that human heads were displayed in their entrance in Gournay's, and the human bones and horse bones were constructed into large ossuary tables. They use human bones and horse bones for constructing a table. So we can say, right, decapitated human heads were prominently displayed at the entrance to Gournay, and the bones of people and horses were constructed as ossuary table in ribbon. Ossuary table in ribbon. And we can take another from here is in Rocupetus and the Glanum, decorated with the trophies of head of slain enemies. They decorate trophies. They give the trophies which are made up of slain enemies. So we write Rocupetus and Glanum, decorated with the trophy heads of slain enemies. So here a point given about killing, sacrificing humans in Iron Age. So what's why they sacrifice humans in Iron Age? So here are the given the reason. The one is sacrifice was probably undertaken only at a time of great stress when communities were under threat. So in Iron Age, human sacrifices occur due to the time of great stress and and on the other hand, conducted this sacrifice is conducted by priests for materialistic demand of prayer. So let's moving toward the next phases. Given that classical writers stress that one of the prime functions of the Druid was to predict the future by consulting the spirits, there is a significant body of archaeological evidence that suggests organized rituals that might be linked to divination. At a cemetery at Stanway, just outside Colchester, a Roman garrison town in southeast England, a man was buried with great ceremony, his grave filled with precious objects, some of which are reminiscent of the shamanic practices that took place in Chartres. The Stanway grave appeared to have been that of someone practiced in the healing art, since it contained a set of medical tools as well as metal ball whose spout was found to have contained a wort of remained identified as Artemisia plant, possibly inhaled by the doctor or by his patient for healing purpose. But there was much more telling paraphernalia in the tomb. The medical kit has been carefully placed upon a game board with glass counter whose position suggests the presence of two players. This might simply have been a nod to the dead man's passion for board games, or it could have symbolized the transition between the world of humans and the dwelling place of the gods. So, this passage is talking about the buried ceremony of peoples in Rome, and or by the in Rome by the Druids. How that ceremony take place and what happens, what the rituals of that ceremony. So the title of this uh, particular passage is The Buried Ceremony in Rome by Druid. Buried Ceremony in Rome, in Roman by Druids. So let's see what we can take from this particular passage. We can take this line as: a man was buried with a great ceremony, his grave filled with precious objects, some of which are reminiscent of the shamanic practices that took place in Chartres. So we can write: a man was buried with great ceremony, his grave filled with precious objects which are reminiscent of the shamanic practices that took place in Chartres. And this practice is also used for healing art. This practice used for healing art. Used in healing art. And also we can take this line as well. It is also important. The transition between the world of human and the dwelling place of the god. Uh, we can take from here is the using of object. No, sorry, placing of objects on grave symbolize the transition between the world of humans and the dwelling place of the gods. That's all for this passage. Let's moving toward the next passage. Two passages are left. Okay. The possibility that the Stanley doctor practiced Druid-like divinations is further demonstrated by another group of grave goods. Also, positions on the game board. Two sets of metal rods, four of bronze and four of iron, four small and four larger. They don't appear to have had a practical function, but they strongly suggest to me their use as divining rods. Tacitus described the wooden rod that Germanic priests used to gather into the bundles and tossed into pieces of white cloth. They divine the will of the god by reading the pattern made by these rods when they had fallen. The Stanley physicians, if that was his profession, may therefore have been someone who doubted, who, who doubled as a ritual healer, as some modern shamans do. So, in this passage is talking about why those why those things, why those wooden rods or those game board materials were using on the graveyard of the sacrificial persons. According, they are used by basically doctors who use that divination function of the Druids, and it is also written by the Tacitus describing that wooden rod is also used by the Germanic priest. So they use it as a identify or just know the what the message God wanna tell them. So the title of this particular passage is use of purpose of use of board game on the graveyard, on the grave. The first is for doctor. It is used first. We can take this line. They divide the will of the gods by reading the pattern and made by these rods they have fallen. So For the Germanic priest, they used it as divined the will of the god by reading the patterns made by these rods when they had fallen. That's for the Germanic priest. But now the purpose for the physicians. They use it as to double the rituals of healer. That's why they use that board games. Now moving forward to the next species. Excavations of Roman, Romano-British and Gallo-Roman temples provide ample evidence for the presence of doctor priests. A case in point is the Great Temple at Lindney in English West Country, perched high above the river Severn in Gloucestershire. Inscriptions tell us that it was dedicated to a British god named Nodin. There is evidence that following practices at ancient Greek healing sanctuaries such as Epidaurus in Peloponnese, pilgrims visiting Lydney bathed in the water of sacred springs and then slept in a special dormitory called an abbotton, where it was hoped they would be healed by the presence of God in their dream. While these temples appear to have begun its life late in the Roman period, the organization of the rituals involved in the managing the life of the shrine and its pilgrims were overseen by the priests. And we know from the late Roman authors such as Gallic academic Ausonius and the Druids still existed as late as the 4th century CE. So this passage is talking about in the Romes. For healing in the Romes, there is a doctor priest where the peoples are, the place is called as uh, pilgrims, a visit of pilgrims like such as Epidaurus and Epidaurus, where the patient bathed in the water of the sacred springs and slept in special dormitory where they are healing in the presence of the god in their dreams. So the topic of this passage is the topic of this particular passage is uh, healing, medical healing in Roman no, not it is. I'm still confused with the topic here. So, according to me, the the title of this particular passage is uh, the role of doctor priest in Roman culture during 4th century. The role of doctor priest in Rome during 4th century CE. So what we can take from here is Pilgrims visiting, yeah, we can take from here is pilgrims visiting Lidney bathed in the water of the sacred springs and then slept in a special dormitory called Abundance where it has hoped they would be healed by the presence of God in their dreams. Okay, the arrangements made by Dr. Priest to let the pilgrims bathe in water of a sacred spring and slept in a special dormitory with the hope that they would be healed by the presence of God in their dreams. And these rituals from here we can take these rituals which involve managing the life of shrine and its pilgrim were overseen by the priest. That's it. It's moving forward to the next spaces. So, what can archaeological discoveries such as those at Chartres or Stanway tell us about the Druids? Sorry. Tell us about Druids. Were they simply magicians who professed to be able to liaise in the spirit world, or were they more sophisticated than that? The latter is more likely. The cult paraphernalia found at the site suggests that Gaul and the Britain possessed spiritual leaders, Druids, who, like modern day shamans, guided their people by using their skills in communing with the god to advise and to heal. There is a clear evidence for such use of hallucinogen and other rituals made in order to cross the divide between the earth world and the other world, and to use the wisdoms gained in their soul journey to aid the communities they serve. So here is this whole passage is talking about the role of Jews. The title of this passage is the role of Jew. The role of Druid, or the purpose of the Druid culture people. So we can take this line. The modern day summons, Druids who are like modern day summons, they guided their people by using their skills in communing with the gods to advise and to heal. And we can take line from here. There is a clear evidence for their use of hallucinogen and other rituals means in order to cross the divide between the earth world and the other world to use the wisdom gained in their soul journey to aid the communities they serve. So what we can take, they use hallucinogens and other rituals process to connect the dot between the earth world and the other world. That's it. Let's moving toward the next spaces. There is a further rich enigmatic vein of evidence of truth. In a number of locations, from Castle Nadolzig in Caredizian, West Wales, to Cosby Ravensworth in Cumbria, Northern Ireland, England. Pairs of bronze spoons were deliberately buried together in graves and more commonly box. They are all very similar in and form. Their handles were intricately decorated with swirling, intertwined designs associated with a particular type of Iron Age ornamental metalwork technique known as latiny. After a site in Switzerland where a huge number of decorated artifacts were found on the shore of the lake Notchtil, the late 19th century. In the contrast of their ornate handles, the bowls of the spoons were left plain, though one of each pair had a small hole drilled in it, while the inner concave surface of the other is marked by the interesting lines dividing it into four quadrants. What was the purpose of this mysterious spoon? So, this passage is talking about uh, the spoon used in Iron Age. The structure of the spoon used in Iron Age. So, the title is The Spoon Used in Iron Age. So, what we can take that from West Wales to Northern Ireland, pair of bronze spoons were deliberately buried together in graves and box, which is we can write from West Wales to Northern England, bronze spoon is buried with graves which are made up of metalwork technique known as latiny, which is left plain. Oh, sorry. But on the contrast of that spoon, the bowl of the spoon were left plain with concave surface, which is divided into four quadrants. So this kind of a spoon is commonly used in that time. So let's moving toward the next passage, which is quite long. But let's see what it contains. A few years ago, the British Museum in London has replicas made up of spoons from Crosby Ravensworth. I managed to acquire a pair of my university teaching, and so, when contracted by the BBC with an invitation to take part in the television program about Druids, I brought them with me in the hope of being able to engage in a bit of experimental archaeology. I had wondered whether these spoons might have been used in rituals designed to elicit the will of the gods or predict the future. So the BBC presenter and I made a preparation for a ritual reconstruction. It's possible that some liquid or powderous substance might have been thus prepared by the Iron Age priests, putting the twin spoons together with the rims of the bowl connecting. A straw made from a hollow bird's bone could have been used to suck up blood or ground up bones or even a red ochre, an important ritual substance in many ancient and modern traditional societies. The substance could be blown through the hole of the upper spoon to land on the marked out squares of the lower one. The Western spatter pattern to be read as an indication of divine will or portent. This would be similar to the Roman practice of augury, wherein the priests, which is called who are called as augurs, drew crossing line on scarce ground and watched the pattern of bird flight over the mark area in order to make divine predictions. The Roman augurs used a staff with a curve end like a hockey stick called a litus to draw the quadrant, and existingly there is archaeological evidence from image on Iron Age coins that this ceremony states were known in Britain prior to the Roman conquest. Who could be better candidate for such ritual activity than the Druids? So here in this particular passage, author is talking about her invitation to the BBC television programs about the truth. So where the author is trying to capture or prepare themselves for all the basic details about how that spoon and bowls are used during a drought times, how the priests are using, what the purpose, they assume the purpose should be the sucking the blood from the different with the different designs, with that unique design of the bowl and the spoon. So I can't the title of this particular passage is author preparations to the BBC television program about the Druids. So we can there is not a particular line we can take from this passage. Instead, we can just write it that the author tried to explain or collect all the details about how that the spoons and bowls used by Druids on that time, it may be because of they assume that they use that particular bowls and spoons for sucking the blood for their some spiritual purpose, or they use this for predicting the futures. That's it for this particular passage. That's in this video here. Thank you very much for with me this long.